Hello and welcome back to The Limit of Adhesion. I'm Sam, and today I'll be doing a review on the brand new Renault Clio that's just been added to iRacing. I'll be talking about its pros, cons, specs and quirks, and largely its overall feeling to drive and race. So with that being said, let's jump right in. I wanted to start off by giving you the facts and the figures of the Clio. So, the Renault Clio was in its 5th generation that debuted in 2020, with the first generation Clio debuting in 1991. After its debut, it became increasingly popular, therefore warranting its own championship, with the 5th generation now racing as a standalone car in its own series. The Clio, with its 4-cylinder turbo, can put out a whopping 200 brake horsepower, which may not sound like a lot, but bear in mind it only weighs 1,032 kilos, or very close to a ton. The Clio has a 5-speed dog box, which is essentially a sequential, that has a very responsive feel and speed to the shifts. One interesting fact to note about the Clio is it actually runs on slick tyres in dry conditions. This gives some response to the car, and it makes it feel like when you're turning in, it actually wants to follow your movements for the most part. You do have to take that with a slight grain of salt. It is a front-wheel drive car, it's not going to be as responsive as an LMP2 car, but it gets a lot better than most of the other front-wheel drive cars in the category, and it feels closer to, say, a TCR car than it would the VW Jetta, for instance. Now, here are some of the pros of the Clio. Obviously this is somewhat subjective, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. First of all, I have to mention the ability to race extremely closely. As you can see in the footage, I really didn't have that much time in the car as I started this race and the races to come, but as I get more and more in tune with the car, the racing just gets better and better. I believe this is due to the massive drafting ability, mixed with the weirdly responsive handling and the relatively small learning curve, enabling you to get nice and close almost everywhere on the track. All of this is then aided hugely by the almost non-existent tyre wear over these shorter races, meaning that you can drive at full aggression and attack without even thinking about overstepping the mark. To add to a point I made earlier, the car is very forgiving to learning drivers. If you do make a mistake, the car will simply understeer, reacting relatively slowly, making it easy to recover, and in the event of an oversteering moment, all you really have to do is straighten up the wheel and plant the throttle. So, to sum up the pros of the Clio, it's a very enjoyable, easy to learn car that offers close racing and an ability to trust the car in every corner, in ways that a lot of other cars don't do. For this next section, I'll be going through all the cons and things that sort of annoyed me or put me off when it comes to the Clio. I have to say, although this may sound contradictory for what I said in the pros, the car is very understeery. It does feel very responsive on the turn-in, but at the middle of the corner and exits, especially high-speed corners, the car just seems to lapse into a very sluggish understeer. The reason I have a problem with this is that the Clio Cup has fixed setups, meaning there's no real solution to the problem other than altering your driving style, really. Another problem I've noticed is the real severe lack of force feedback and feeling through the car. I have recently been using a Logitech G29 as my old Club Sport wheel broke, so I can only really comment for lower end gear, but I will say though the force feedback felt very similar to the Jetta in the sense that there wasn't really much feeling unless it was a massive curb. That might be down to power steering or a way that the driving style is modelled, but as far as I can tell, it's just a feeling that I don't really like, and I'm not really a fan of that driving style. A big issue I encountered when learning the car, although this isn't really an issue with the car or a con, it's just something to learn, is in the brakes. The Clio's brakes are very hit or miss. They're either locked up or not really stopping you. And like I said, this is something that you have to get used to, but it's prone to be quite lethal at times, especially if you're throwing yourselves into these races and you're not really used to the track or the car combination. It can be very dangerous. Lastly, for the cons, the Clio is a very momentum-based car, and with one of my pros in this video being that there's very close racing, it also means that if you do get an exit wrong, even slightly, and you lose 1 or 2 kph, then it is so hard to keep your speed, and you will lose at least a few positions almost instantly. So it can prove a real challenge to be consistently smooth and fast on the exits to stay ahead of everybody else. Again, much like the braking, this is more of a gripe that I had when learning the car. It's not really a problem with the car. I actually think it makes it quite enjoyable, but I didn't really have a place to put it, so I thought it probably belonged in the cons category. Now comes the point in the video where I tell you whether the car is worth it or not, and I can't lie, it's going to be tough. On the one hand, you have a very close battler with an amazing sound, an easy learning curve, and a currently booming player base. On the other, you have a somewhat sluggish version of the MX-5 that you have to pay for. So, here's my recommendation. If you're looking for a series that is a good basis for learning and you dislike the MX-5, get it. If you like the TCR cars and you want to get used to a car like them, get it. But if you're an open wheeler or you like the MX-5, I simply can't recommend it. It's a decent little car that I enjoy, but simply put, I would rather have the MX-5 for free. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it if you did, and consider subscribing. And if you would like to race with the LOA, join us down below in our Oval or Road Discords. See you in the next one.